7th. October 7th. What are we going to be talking about with October 7th? Well, we're going to be talking about Diane Ackerman. We're going to be talking about this guy with Interpol who got arrested by Chinese officials. We got a guy that went ahead. There's Revolution, and then you got the Patrick Ferguson, and then the Granite Railway, and then you got the computers. Calculators. I mean, the calculators used to be as big as a goddamn room. This is like a countertop with a refrigerator. Holy shit. And then, of course, Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, and then you got Desmond, Tutu, and Niels Bohr. Diane Ackerman. Why do we want to talk about Diane Ackerman? Well, she wrote a book. She wrote two books, actually. The Moon by Whale Light and Natural History of Senses. Which senses? Just the five senses? Or did she... The Natural History of Senses. That's incredible. I guess some people... Anybody could just get a book published if you're rich enough. But how do you get a book published if you're not rich enough? You could self-publish, but if you don't have the money, then you'd have to ask the publisher. The publisher would have to do it. It'd have to be popular enough. I don't know. Either you have the money to do it. It seems like a feat to me. Diane Ackerman. So one day I will read The Mail by Whale Light, The Moon by Whale Light, and Natural History of the Senses. I once heard that women are actually into butt stuff. It seems gay to me. So October 7th is 1948. October 7th is when Diane Ackerman was born. That's why I'm talking about Diane Ackerman. So everybody go out and buy Diane Ackerman's Natural History of the Senses. Now let's talk about this Interpol guy. This Interpol guy, right, he's part of this police agency around the world. First Chinese man to run Interpol. And then in 2018, October 7th, he's going to be arrested by Chinese authorities. And then later on, after he was missing in action, he's just going to resign. And then later on, he gets like a 13-year sentence or some shit. That's fucking crazy. He's part of the police force, international police force. So he's like one of the most powerful police officers in the world, only to get arrested when he goes back to China. So that's kind of, it's the way the cookie crumbles. Speaking of cookies, donuts. You know where donuts come from? Apparently donuts come from the Pillsbury Doughboy scrotum. That's where donuts come from. Now we have Leon Gambetta. Leon Gambetta, you know what he did? He escaped Paris in a hot air balloon, 1870, October 7th, during the Franco-Prussian Frenchman Leon Gambetta. So this is in the middle of the Franco-Prussian War. Frenchman Leon Gambetta escaped Paris in a hot air balloon. That's just like the IRA escaping in the helicopter. You had 3 IRA escape from a helicopter, back in the 70s or some shit. This was way back in 1870, October 7th. Now, let's listen to the answer between Kennedy and Nixon during the second debate of 1960, which happened October 7th. The question is, both of you guys are ignoring civil rights. Neither one of you are talking about civil rights in the South. And unfortunately, because both of these candidates are right-wing conservative, civil rights is being conflated with a black thing. Civil rights being integration with black people, but civil rights is the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is worthy of not one revolution, but 2 revolutions, 3 revolutions. We won, World War II? We won the Civil War. We won the American Revolution. Why? Because of personal, individual freedoms guaranteed by the government. That's civil rights. That's what civil rights is.
Mr. Spivak with a question for Vice President Nixon.
Mr. Vice President, you have accused Senator Kennedy of avoiding the civil rights issue when he has been in the South, and he has accused you of the same thing. With both North and South listening and watching, would you sum up your own intentions in the field of civil rights if you become president?
My intentions in the field of civil rights have been spelled out in the Republican platform. I think we have to make progress first in the field of employment, and there we would give statutory authority to the Committee on Government Contracts, which is an effective way of getting real progress made in this area, since about 1 out of every 4 jobs is held by and is allotted by people who have government contracts. Certainly, I think all of us agree that when anybody has a government contract, certainly the money that is spent under that contract ought to be dispersed equally without regard to the race or creed or color of the individual who is to be employed. Second, in the field of schools, we believe that there should be provisions whereby the federal government would give assistance to those districts who do want to integrate their schools. That, of course, was rejected, as was the government contracts provision by the special session of the Congress, in which Mr. Kennedy was quite active. And then, as far as other areas are concerned, I think that we have to look to presidential leadership. And when I speak of presidential leadership, I refer, for example, in our attitude on the sit-in strikes. Here, we have a situation which causes all of us concern. It causes us concern because of the denial of the rights of people to the equality which we think belongs to everybody. I have talked to Negro mothers. I've heard them try to explain how they tell their children.
The Republican Party were the ones that actually liberated black folks during the Civil War. That's the birth of the Republican Party, was the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's kind of crazy. I mean, Eisenhower actually did a bunch of things when it came to breaking segregation. 1954, that was when the Board of Education, that famous Board of Education, the thing that overturned Plessy versus Brown v. Board of Education. In 1943, October 7th, we'll return to Nixon and Kennedy. What do you think Kennedy is going to say about civil rights? Shouldn't they just say, look, black folks deserve civil rights just because, they're born on this country. White people deserve civil rights because they were born in this country. The 14th Amendment says that if you're born in this country, that makes you a citizen. And so, therefore, if you're a citizen of these United States, then you are guaranteed the rights that are listed out in the Bill of Rights. That's what your civil liberties are. Those are freedoms, are immunities, are privileges. They are your freedoms, liberties. Well, there's 5 words I typically remember, but privileges, immunities, liberties, freedoms, and privileges. As an American, you have certain privileges, and the privileges are spelled right the fuck out in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are still worthy of revolution today. October 7th, 1943, Niels Bohr. The Great Dane, 58-year-old Niels Bohr, is going to escape Nazi Germany to Sweden on a fishing boat. Isn't that crazy? What's crazy about this Niels Bohr story is that he's going to help America form the atomic bomb. When he runs out, you have Nazis walking in the front door because the Gestapo had an arrest warrant. The Gestapo had an arrest warrant for Niels Bohr. He didn't want to leave. He tried fighting, leaving, and then eventually he had to go. And it was, basically harrowing. As soon as they come through the front door, he's running out the back door, and he's got hard water. He grabbed a bottle of hard water. Why would you grab a beer bottle filled with heavy water out of his icebox? Because you could build a bomb out of uranium and heavy water. Danish anti-fascists laid down the cover fire. So if it wasn't for the anti-fascist in Denmark, the anti-fascist allowed Niels Bohr to escape Nazi Germany, the Gestapo, so he could get to Sweden and then ultimately get to the UK and then get to America. So he could form the atomic bomb for us, and then we could bring about the end of World War II. So without Niels Bohr, we might have lost. We might have lost World War II. The Mosquito took off, so he's going to get in an airplane. So they take him to a fishing boat, right? Hurry up, get on this fishing boat. The fishing boat is going to, I wonder if the fishing boat was by paddle or if it was like a motorized fishing boat. But it's going to get to the Mosquito, which is a aircraft. I want to say some sort of British warplane. They put him on this aircraft, which takes off really fast, goes high really quickly from a secret remote airfield. So that's interesting. They get him on a fishing boat, and then they take him into the middle of some place where there's an airfield. Anyways, Niels Bohr is going to be on his back in the converted bomb bay, and he's going to pass out. When they get him to the destination, he's going to pretend that he was just sleeping. Oh, I wasn't passed out. I was just I was just resting my eyes. I wasn't. What do you mean? I didn't pass out. That isn't something that had happened. All right, back to Nixon.
How they can go into a store and buy a loaf of bread, but then can't go into that store and sit at the counter and get a Coca-Cola. This is wrong, and we have to do something about it. So under the circumstances, what do we do? Well, what we do is what the Attorney General of the United States did under the direction of the President. Call in the owners of chain stores and get them to take action. Now, there are other places where the executive can lead, but let me just sum up by saying this. Why do I talk every time I'm in the South on civil rights? Not because I'm preaching to the people of the South, because this isn't just a Southern problem, it's a Northern problem and a Western problem. It's a problem for all of us. I do it because it's the responsibility of leadership. I do it because we have to solve this problem together. I do it right at this time particularly because when we have Khrushchev in this country, a man who has enslaved millions, a man who has slaughtered thousands, we cannot continue to have a situation where he can point the finger at the United States of America and say that we are denying rights to our citizens.
It's a good point. So he's just saying, like, for our own, PR campaign around the world, if you want to have any sort of say-so around the world. It was interesting that Nixon said that you could go into a store and buy a Coca-Cola, but you can't sit at the lunch counter. So you could walk in, grab your Coca-Cola, put it on the counter, give the money to the clerk, but you weren't allowed to hang out. You weren't allowed to fraternize. You weren't allowed to socialize. You weren't allowed to, no soliciting. I guess just loitering. You couldn't loiter. You couldn't sit at the damn, the countertop and eat and drink your Coke or whatever for right then and there, which is incredible, actually. It's almost like there was segregation, but like it was like half integrated. Sure, you could come in and get your Coke, but give the money and then get the hell out of here. Can I stay here and drink my Coke? Can I stay right here and, order some hamburger or some shit and eat and drink? No, get the hell out of here. It was 1960, October 7th, 1960. Here is Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu has actually had a bunch of great quotes. He says that neutrality, when you choose neutrality, you're picking the side of the oppressor. And he used the example of a mouse and an elephant. When an elephant is stepping on a mouse's tail and you choose neutrality, how does the mouse feel? Oh, you're neutral? Oh, okay. It's just a fucking elephant stepping on a mouse's tail, but you're neutral. Oh, okay. Fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. He, of course, Desmond Tutu, he's a bishop, and he was known for helping with apartheid, ending apartheid in South Africa. Catalina Island is going to be discovered on October 7th. Let's listen to more of this debate.
And so I say both the candidates and both the vice presidential candidates, I would hope as well, including Senator Johnson, should talk on this issue at every opportunity.
Senator Kennedy.
Well, Mr. Nixon hasn't discussed the two basic questions. What is going to be done and what will be his policy on implementing the Supreme Court decision of 1954? Giving aid to schools technically that are trying to carry out the decision is not the great question. Secondly, what's he going to do to provide fair employment? He's been the head of the Committee on Government Contracts. He's carried out two cases, both in the District of Columbia. He has not indicated his support of an attempt to provide fair employment practices around the country so that everyone can get a job regardless of their race or color.
Hey guys, this is Senator John Ossoff in Georgia.
Oh, you need some money, huh, John Ossoff? It's the only time you talk to me.
He indicated that he would support Title III, which would give the Attorney General additional powers to protect constitutional rights. These are the great questions. Quality of education in schools. About 2% of our population, white people, is 10% of our colored population. 60 to 70% of our colored children do not finish high school. These are the questions. In these areas that the North and the South, East and West are entitled to know, what will be the leadership of the President in these areas to provide equality of opportunity for employment, equality of opportunity in the field of housing, which could be done on all federal supported housing by a stroke of the President's pen. What will be done to provide equality of education in all sections of the United States? Those are the questions to which the President must establish a moral tone and moral leadership. And I can assure you that if I'm elected President, we will do so.
Mr. Levy with a question for Senator Kennedy.
Almost feel like JFK just got elected because he had such great hair, his youthful appearance, because Nixon didn't look that bad on camera. Apparently he was all sweating, and they said those TV debates really, locked Kennedy's race in. Here's the Luna 3. You know what the Luna 3 is famous for? The first time we got to see the far side of the moon. The first time we got to see the far side of the moon was through the USSR's Luna 3 space probe, which they had launched, or did it land? Something, October 7th, 1959. You're going to see the Luna 3. We'll say it launched until someone corrects me later on. But the Luna 3, I mean, this little piece of metal, this hunk of metal, the USSR is going to throw out into space, and we're going to finally see the far side of the moon. Does the moon rotate in a way that we never see, like, one part of it? Because it just seems like if it's all rotating, eventually you'll see all of it. But having the far side of the moon makes it sound as if sometimes we don't know, there's a part of the moon that we never get to see. It's never illuminated. It's only one side of the moon is always faced, towards us, which that's remarkable. I didn't know that. An exoplanet, we've only found the first exoplanet back in 1995, Pegasus 51. So that's the only goddamn Earth-like planet that we have found in all the fucking universe, and it was like light years away. We only found one back in 1995. So, in a way, the USSR, I know it was a Cold War or whatever, but having a competitor, having an opponent with a space race, that kind of pushed America to do some great things out in space. We don't do hardly any great things in space. Like, we landed on the fucking moon, there was all these, sort of, once we landed on the moon, that was kind of it, the Apollo missions, and then it's just kind of like, they're just, anyways, October 7th, 1959. The Luna 3 is going to be shot up into space. I mentioned this earlier, 1954, in Poughkeepsie, IBM had displayed a large transistor calculator needing only 5% of the power of comparable models. So that was the 604. This 604 calculator right here is state of the art. It's going to blow out all the competitors out of the water. In 1957, IBM introduced the IBM 608. So here's what the 608 computer looks like. Or not computer, calculator. Hey, what's 7 times 7? Oh, let me just purchase like $1 million. This motherfucker's like $1 million, back in the day, 50s, 1950s. Now you just, $5 you could buy a calculator. Probably even for $1 you could buy like some little, calculator with a tiny little battery. But back in the day, having a fucking calculator was a $1 million investment. I see here in 1931, the first Kodak was taken also, 1931, October 7th, which that was in Rochester, New York at Kodak Labs. I wonder if a Kodak would work now. I don't even know. Do people do printing, photos anymore? Getting even your digital pictures, like, printed up on nice photo paper so you can put them in frames and hide them up, or hide them and put them up on your walls. It seems like that would still be a business. Why wouldn't you want Kodak, right? You could take, your digital pictures and then the one that you like, go ahead and print it right up. I suppose if you got good printer paper and a good printer, you probably could just wait to do it at home. But I don't know, it's kind of nice to take a picture and then right then and there it produces a photo that you can give to the other person and then go live your day. I wonder if Kodak could make a comeback because Kodak is going to go bankrupt. So calculators, I mean, should today be a calculator day because of these forerunners, the IBM 604 and the IBM 608? I mean, it's like, hey, we're using transistors. We're using transistors in our calculator now, It'll be nice. Man, it'll be sweet. Calculator could also be used as in like as a scheming, manipulating, Machiavellian kind of person. But since I've always grown up with calculators, I think it's good to be a calculator, right? Calculate your moves. Calculate your, how you're going to do life. We already talked about Luna 3. We're going to talk about Catalina Island. This island is right off the coast of California. And get this. A guy named Wrigley, Bill Wrigley Jr. is going to buy the island in 1919 for $3 million. $3 million. And how was he able to do that? Well, he's Wrigley, right? So he's part of the Wrigley fortune. The Wrigley fortune. So the bubblegum people, right? So we'll talk about that here. Let's listen to some more
Senator,
Kennedy.
on the same subject, in the past you have emphasized the president's responsibility as a moral leader as well as an executive on civil rights questions, what specifically might the next president do in the event of an occurrence such as Little Rock or the lunch counter sit-ins?
Well, let me say that I think the president operates in a number of different areas. First is a legislative leader. And as I just said, I believe that the passage of the so-called Title III, which gives the Attorney General the power to protect constitutional rights in those cases where it's not possible for the person involved to bring a suit. Secondly, as an executive leader, there have been only 6 cases brought by this Attorney General under the voting bill passed in 1957 and the voting bill passed in 1960. The right to vote is basic. I do not believe that this administration has implemented those bills which represent the will of the majority of the Congress on 2 occasions with vigor. Thirdly, I don't believe that the Government Contracts Division has operated with vigor. Everyone who does business with the government should have the opportunity to make sure that they do not practice discrimination in their hiring, and that's in all sections of the United States. And then, fourthly, as a moral leader, there is a very strong moral basis to this concept of equality before the law. Not only equality before the law, but also equality of opportunity. We are in a very difficult time. We need all the talent we can get. We sit on a conspicuous stage. We are a goldfish bowl before the world.
Okay, so how about protect civil rights for black people so that way you guarantee civil rights for white people? Everybody gets their civil rights. It's kind of crazy how they sort of talk about civil rights as if it's just for black folks and not for white folks. Civil rights is civil liberties and it's the Bill of Rights. I've already mentioned all this, but I'm saying it again because just to bring the point home, Catalina Island is going to be discovered. It's going to be discovered, right, quote unquote, 1542 by Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, this guy here. So Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo is going to discover Catalina Island, which is in incredible Spain. So he came from the west. How did he, which were 1542? Maybe, I guess, they came from the east, and I guess he just walked across. He's going to discover Catalina Island. So that happened 1542, October 7th. Now, Catalina Island, it wasn't discovered, right? Because Catalina Island has been there, you know, the whole goddamn time. And so, what is some history of the Catalina Island? It's, well, you have, you know, the Native Americans. You had some natives there. They were called the Pemu, the Pemugnan natives. So the Pemugnan, they called the Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo had called the island San Salvador. He called it San Salvador, but the Pemugnan natives had called the island Pemu. And so in a way, shouldn't we keep calling it Pemu? They'd been there for, what, 14,000 years, and some asshole comes in there 1542, October 7th, and all of a sudden now it's San Salvador, and then someone else is going to discover it, and then they're going to say Santa Catalina Island. And then Catalina Island, look at all them nice houses, look at all them ships. They got a big dock right there in the middle of the water. Catalina Island is going to be right there off the coast, right? So it's really close to Los Angeles. It's kind of a perfect little island. It's like California without being California, you know. And Wrigley is eventually going to buy Catalina Island. But it was the Pemu people, so you can't really discover something that other people were at, right? 1919, Bill Wrigley Jr. is going to buy the island for $3 million. And some crazy thing, right off the coast of Pemu, Catalina Island, you're going to have Natalie Wood. Some, you know, stars, an actress named Natalie Wood. She was part of, there's 2 really old movies that Natalie Wood was a part of. Miracle on 34th Street she had co-starred in, and then West Side Story. Natalie Wood is going to drown right off the coast of Catalina Island. Maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. And Christopher Walken, he was a co-star of the movie that Natalie Wood was filming called Brainstorm. And apparently Christopher Walken and 2 other people were actually with Natalie Wood the night that she is going to drown. They found bruises on her arm, on her abdomen. She had some bruise on her face, on her cheek. So it looks very suspicious. Like Natalie Wood had her ass kicked and then thrown into the water and drowned. But I guess she could have drowned and then been, pushed around. Her body got beat up somehow with the waves hitting. I don't know what it would hit, a buoy or something. I don't know. So there's some information about Catalina Island. All right, more JFK for a minute. You got 1 minute.
We set a very high standard for ourselves. The communists do not. They set a low standard of materialism. We preach in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution, in the statement of our greatest leaders, we preached very high standards. And if we're not going to be charged before the world with hypocrisy, we have to meet those standards. I believe the President of the United States should indicate it. Now, lastly, I believe in the case of Little Rock. I would have hoped that the President of the United States would have been possible for him to indicate it clearly that the Supreme Court decision was going to be carried out. I would have hoped it would have been possible to use marshals to do so. But it would, evidently, under the handling of the case, it was not. I would hope an incident like that would not happen. I think if the President is responsible, if he consults with those involved, if he makes it clear that the Supreme Court decision is going to be carried out in a way that the Supreme Court planned, with deliberate speed, then in my judgment, providing he's behind action, I believe we can make progress. Now, the present administration, the President has said, never indicated.
All right, that's enough. So, does hospital. Barack Obama, just to compare the tenor of this administration with 2015, October 7th, President Barack Obama had apologized to Doctors Without Borders because the president of Doctors Without Borders and the president of Afghanistan because of a hospital that was bombed in Kunduz. So this is Afghanistan. A hospital was bombed by America in Kunduz, Kunduz, and he apologized. Could you ever see our president for apologizing for, bombing something that you weren't supposed to bomb and, some civilians were killed? Do you think he could ever apologize for any goddamn mistake that they had made civilians? I mean, the fact that they're going along with this Israel shit, they're okay with murdering civilians. They're okay with bombing hospitals and schools and tent cities. They're just kind of willy-nilly killing people left and right. They're okay with it. I mean, to see or to think that this current president would actually apologize for even, a blatant mistake, it's just, I can't see it happening. So it's incredible that we actually, at one point in time, had a president that would apologize for shit that we did not mean to do. Wrong shit, bad shit, murder of Doctors Without Borders and their patients. Whoops. You also have a Revolutionary War thing that happened. Here you got Pretty Boy Floyd, Patrick Ferguson, his redcoats in South Carolina at the Battle of Kings Mountain. He's going to get murdered. He's going to get killed. 1780 murdered. It's in the middle of a war, so I guess he's like a general. He's a soldier, so he was actually a fair target. It's murder because he dies, but he was invading. What the fuck did redcoats want to tell us Americans what to do? October 7th, you have the militia is going to beat Patrick Ferguson's redcoats in South Carolina at the Battle of Kings Mountain, which is also going to see Patrick Ferguson himself. He's going to die. Patrick Ferguson, let me just read this little description here. During the fighting, Ferguson was shot from his horse while with his foot still in the stirrup. He was dragged to the Patriot side, according to Patriot accounts. When a Patriot approached the major for his surrender, Ferguson drew his pistol and shot him as a last act of defiance. The guy approached the major for his surrender, He didn't say, I'm going to shoot you. He's like, hey, basically your horse brought you over here. Your foot got stuck in the stirrup, and the horse ran over to our side. You're our prisoner. You've already been captured. And like a fucking douchebag, dumbass, dumb fuck, he's going to pull out his gun and shoot the guy. And I don't know if he killed the fucking Patriot, but that's going to piss off the Patriots, Basically, he could have just surrendered. It would have been peaceful. The rest of his men would have surrendered. It would have been could have been a nice, non-violent affair, but now other soldiers are going to retaliate. Ferguson's body was found with 8 musket holes in it. Patriot accounts said their militia stripped his body of clothing and then pissed all over him before burying him because he had published a threat to the local loyalists saying that they must join him or be pissed upon by the Patriots. So that's his fucking language, right? Patrick Ferguson was like, if you don't join us British redcoats, then the goddamn American Patriots are just going to piss upon you all. So he's making it seem like we just like pissing on things, and so we showed him by pissing all over his corpse. How dare you say we piss on everything? We'll piss on your corpse. They buried him in an ox hide near the site of his fall. Colonel Benjamin Cleveland of North Carolina claimed Ferguson's white stallion as a war prize, rode it home to his estate of Roundabout, one of Patrick Ferguson's mistresses. So, okay, Mr. Pretty Boy Floyd, was he mistress? Was he married? Virginia Sow was also killed in the battle and was buried with the officer. So they buried him along with it. So that's the redcoats. Who was on the American side? I just got two people here. Isaac Shelby, who's also the first governor of Kentucky. He's an American revolutionary who was fighting against Patrick Ferguson at the Battle of Kings Mountain. And then you also have Brigadier General William Campbell right here. So that's the side that we Americans, us red, white, and blue-blooded Americans, we are on the side of Isaac Shelby. We are on the side of Brigadier General William Campbell. And that is kind of crazy. That's the George Washington of Kentucky right there, Isaac Shelby. Kind of has a weird-looking long face, right? I kind of like this guy's face. Not as handsome as Patrick Ferguson, so okay, I see on that front. But the Chitwoods, I'm related to the Chitwoods. Chitwoods are in my ancestry, and one of the patriarchs of the Chitwoods are going to get hunged because of the Battle of Kings Mountains, because they was a loyalist. They had a court-martial right then and there, and then the Chitwood sons, they said, you better goddamn pledge allegiance to America and tell us that the British suck. And that's exactly what the Chitwoods did. They said, to hell with the goddamn British redcoats, when they're under the gun. And then they're going to move out to Appalachia and eastern Tennessee and Winfield. They're going to go to Winfield. It used to be called Chitwood, but because in the Civil War, they're going to pick the wrong side. So the Chitwoods actually picked the wrong side 2 times. They picked the redcoats during the American Revolution, then they picked the Confederates during the Civil War. Fucking Chitwoods, man. Whenever there's war fever being swept up, if it's in the United States of America, make sure you think long and hard. Make sure you think long and hard about which side you're actually on. If you're just like, racism, yeah, I'm on the side of racism, well then you're probably on the wrong fucking side. If you're like, status quo, I'm just going to keep the status quo as is because who gives a shit, right? The Granite Railway from Quincy, the first chartered railway, begins operations. It's a granite railway from Quincy to Milton, Massachusetts. That begins October 7th, 1826. Desmond Tutu was born October 7th, 1931. Niels Bohr was born October 7th, 1943. The first time we see the far side of the moon was with Luna 3, October 7th, 1959. The second Nixon and JFK debate, October 7th, 1960. They also talked about Cuba and Batista in that debate. Diane Ackerman was born also 1948, October 7th. She could still be alive, couldn't she? She'd been in her 70s. I wonder if this Diane Ackerman is still alive. So this Granite Railway was actually kind of cool because it was a railway, but it's only 3 miles, and it looks like it was being pushed, being pulled by literal horses. And that's like 2 horsepower, right? A 2 horsepower engine. And so that's the Granite Railway in Quincy, Massachusetts. And then you see these old things here. They used to have, here this looks like a really fine looking, look at those big trees, and then you got the metal things that's up the hill, right? So you have this picture where the railway would go up the hill, and then you have all this granite on, granite on the left side here. But I think this is a recent picture where there is no fucking goddamn, where's the metal? Where's the metal? Where's the big logs? It's just, they put rocks on it, so it's just like a rock way, and it don't even go as far up the hill as this one went. Where's the hillside? It's almost like the hillside isn't there, and then you don't have the big piles of granite, off to the side either. So I think it's a good thing with the chartered railway thing. It's just kind of like we got a bunch of rocks here in Quincy, Massachusetts, and we need to get all these rocks to Milton, Massachusetts. And so how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have a railway, and we're going to have a cart and horsepower, and that's how we're going to carry all these fucking rocks. So it's only 3 miles away, but huge operation for 3 miles. And now I guess it's just folklore. It's just a bunch of folklore now. Now it's just kind of like, hey, that the monument and that walkway, yeah, that used to be something. It's not something now, but it used to be. It used to be something. Oh, yeah. Oh, it used to be something. But not now? Is that what you're trying to say to me? That's actually the end of this. Let's listen to some more of this.
What he thought of the 1954 decision. Unless the president speaks, then, of course, the country doesn't speak. When Franklin Roosevelt said, the presidency of the United States is above all a place of moral leadership. And I believe on this great moral issue, he should speak out and give his views clearly.
There's clearly a second gunman on the grassy knoll. You can tell by the way his head goes back into the left. You know, Charlie Kirk's head went back into the left too, or actually went slightly to the side, and definitely to the left. But it looked like it went back to me, which would indicate that the shot came from in front of him. And to the right, that's, you know, if you go back into the left. Theo Von is not suicidal. Israel. In 2025, I learned that white people don't wash their feet in the shower. They just let the water fall down on the floor, and then they just hope that their feet get cleaned, you know. Hopefully my feet get cleaned. So it's totally happenstance. Med beds. You know, we don't have universal health care here. Right now the government's been shut down for 6 days over universal health care, over Obamacare. You know, they got rid of the mandate, but now they're trying to get rid of all the subsidies as well. So you're going to have to kick 21 million people off of health care. So they're not protecting Medicare and Medicaid. They're getting rid of the subsidies, and actually they're getting rid of Medicare and Medicaid. U.S. government shut down because Donald and the GOP, they hate Obamacare. We know this. They hate Obamacare. They hate health care. They don't give a fuck if a bunch of poor people, 21 million poor people in America, lose their health care. They don't give a shit. But they should. They were talking about med beds, you know. Why wouldn't they pass med beds out to everybody? That would actually be pretty cool. It might get rid of all the autism that Tylenol has caused. So if we all get med beds, then maybe all the autism that Tylenol has caused, we can finally put a little pin in that, put a little hammer to that, put a little cure on that. Inigo Montoya says, "Hi, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." The Chitwoods, an hour. You know that goddamn Battle of Kings Mountain only took an hour? It was only an hour long. 1 fucking hour. That's crazy. I don't know how many people had died in that Battle of Kings Mountain, but that was, you know, loyalists. It was the goddamn British Empire. It was in South Carolina, which would have been the southern theater of the war. But, man, American goddamn patriots fucking kicked the fuck ass in the Battle of Kings Mountain, which happened on October 7th, 1780. October 7th, 1780. This is 4 years into the revolution. The revolution's going to last, you know, goddamn 4 or 5 years, and then the peace of Paris doesn't come until 83, so that's 7 years later. But active fighting is going to happen on this continent for 5 years straight. Could you imagine? Could you imagine, like, that happening today? That'd be fucking crazy. But that's what people are talking about, is fucking civil war. They were pushing civil war after Charlie Kirk. I almost feel like Greta Thunberg. Oh my God, we were like, did you see that judge's house was on fire? I feel like we're only a couple political, you know, 1 or 2 people on the left, 1 or 2 people on the right. I think a fucking civil war would happen just based upon fucking Republican and Democrat shit. They're both right wing, so, but Democrats, you'd like to think they'll say they're left of center, maybe. You'd like to think that they would at least, Kamala at least, you know, said Ma'am Domney. She gave like a quick little endorsement of Ma'am Donnie. But a lot of Democrats can't even fucking endorse him because they're fucking right wing as fuck.